A lot of people are concerned, and I understand it, that with Ethereum getting approved for the first ETF, that it's going to be the same old story. ETHgate 2.0, Ethereum free pass the next generation. Like Ethereum gets across the finish line and the rest of the altcoin market is going to be stuck on the outside looking in. That ain't happening, people. This is a different story this time around. And the reason being, your BlackRocks, your Fidelities, they get their way. They get what they want. You saw the Bitcoin launch, the most successful ETF in history. Now, Ethereum did about a quarter of its volume. That's still enough to make it one of the most successful launches in history. There's a huge appetite here. We're not dealing with Winklevoss twins or Coinbase or any of these other type of crypto bros. Fidelity, BlackRock, your big players, they get their way. There's an appetite for it, and they're going to service that market, you best believe. This is an interview with the head of CoinDesk Indices. He makes some interesting observations here. First and foremost, he says, look, investors, they're going to have to really look into the difference between Bitcoin and Ethereum. And as they do that, as they understand the differences between those two blockchains and all the extra functionality and how really Ethereum is just a totally different beast than Bitcoin, well, that's going to cause them to look into the broader altcoin space and see all of the building that's going on and functionality that you get on all these different chains, whether it be XRP, Solana, Cardano, Polkadot, whatever. And there's going to be an appetite for that. They want it, and they're going to get it. Best believe that. He also says something that I've been saying for a long time. Yeah, you have to recognize Ethereum is the leader in this space. It's not even close, but they have a lot of competition. And this is far from a sure thing. Let me go ahead and play this interview. Again, I think he has a lot of good observation for what we're going to see here in the near future. And the fact that, you know what, a lot of these investors, the big money, there's so much gains to be had. They're not going to want to sit here and dig into each and every little coin and know every aspect about it. They're going to want bundled products where they buy the top 20 coins or the top 10, smart contract coins. They'll have all sorts of bundled products in this manner. And there's going to be a ton of crypto trading within traditional markets here in the future. It's just going to continue to grow and build on itself. Welcome to the future. This is wild.
I think it's going all right. The volumes and the inflows are about 25% of what they were for Bitcoin. And of course, Ethereum, when you look at its market capitalization, is about a third of the size of Bitcoin in its crypto native form. So those numbers are kind of close to each other. It's a big lift for people, advisors, and distribution forces to understand the difference between Bitcoin and Ethereum, why they should provide some diversification with respect to each other. Ethereum has a very different use case than Bitcoin. It's a very different kind of proposition to the token holder. So a lot of education work needs to get done. So I think that the day one looked very smooth. We look for billions to come into these ETFs in the next 12 months.
And you know what? It's only a matter of time before that ETF eventually, you don't get it day one, but eventually you're going to get staking rewards. And then that's going to be something that piques people's interest. They can invest in this Ethereum ETF and they're going to get monthly or quarterly rewards in more Ethereum. It's going to be wild. And this is going to continue on as you get new ETFs that go across the finish line. A lot of these staking cryptos, I think, are going to be very popular for that reason.
Now, according to Bitwise CIO Matt Hogan, spot Ether ETF inflows could push the price of Ether past $5,000. In a memo last week, Hogan said new highs for Ether won't happen immediately and warned that the first few weeks since launching could be, quote, choppy as money might flow out of the $11 billion Grayscale Ethereum trust after it converts to an ETF. He went on to forecast that Ether could hit new records by the end of this year. And according to recent Citi research, spot Ether ETFs could see net inflows of up to $5.4 billion in the first 6 months since launching. Do you agree with these projections? Do you think they're realistic? What do you think will happen to the price of Ether now that spot ETFs are trading?
So Ether in its native form is about a $420 billion asset, and again, Bitcoin's 3 times that big. I think that we've seen those two forecasts and others which talk about price appreciation over 5,000, which is not a price record for Ether. So Ether hadn't hit its price record like Bitcoin did in the spring. So there's still sort of room to grow, even to get back to its current all-time high. I think it really comes down to how advisors and distribution forces are able to make the case of Ether as the sort of the heartbeat or the headquarters for tokenization, for stable coins, and for smart contract platforms. Now, on the other hand, as soon as people learn about Ethereum and about its growth prospects and about its cash flows, they're going to realize that unlike Bitcoin, Ether has competition. There are other smart contract platforms out there. And when you learn about one, you start to hear about the existence of the others. And so at a certain point, we are delighted that Ether ETFs are out there in the wild. We are not satisfied, though, that investors have all the access to the digital asset class that they need. Our CoinDesk 20 index, which trades in different parts of the world and is available in the US in a fund form, an SMA fund, tracks 20 assets, including almost a dozen smart contract platforms. So you can sort of play the whole field, not just the one that's currently available in an ETF. So we love to see inflows into the asset class. We would really love to see a way to have broad-based access to the asset class in a wrapper as convenient as ETFs.
And that's going to be the big deal. Again, for a lot of these investors, they're not going to be interested in buying individual coins or even individual ETFs. They're going to want to be able to get, a whole host of smart contract exposure through a singular ETF, maybe get 10 of them, 5 of them, whatever. And, different segments, different sectors of the crypto space. And it's going to be similar to like the S&P 500 or any other ETF or any other index. But again, there's not going to be that many premium coins that you could wrap in these products. But there's probably 30 of them that will make the cut and be approved for trading. And that's going to be a wildly different environment than the one we find ourselves now. If you own a premium cryptocurrency, one of your heavy hitters that has real utility, adoption, significant volume on a daily basis, it's not if that thing is going to get an ETF approval, it's just when. That's the question. When's that going to happen? And I think we'll start to see that happen in a significant way in 2025.
Bitcoin ETFs have certainly been a hit, recently topping $17 billion in net inflows since their debut back in January. Do you think Ether ETFs will prove to be as popular? How do these new products compare to Bitcoin ETFs? I mean, Bitcoin has about 3 times the value of Ether, as you mentioned. So could that limit the initial appeal of Ether ETFs, coupled with the fact that Ether might not be as familiar to many investors?
I think of Bitcoin, and the Bitcoin I hold it as a store of value that almost like a currency that's going to react in an inverse way to movements of the US dollar. I also think of it as a 15-year-old blockchain that's proved to be very secure and very well adopted. I think of it as something where the adoption is going to grow vastly over time. Bitcoin's function basically is to move Bitcoins between one person and another person. The simplicity of that, the security of that, and the fact that we've had 15 years of network growth, which just barely cracks the surface of the potential demand out there, makes a very exciting use case. Ether is a platform. It's an app store. It's a factory that helps the future of finance, that helps Web3 kind of realize itself. It's the most trusted smart contract platform. It's the one used in the majority of stablecoin transactions. So think of it almost like this necessary piece of market structure for Web3 to make sense. As such, it has fees to actually make these things happen. Those fees are paid for in Ether. They're called gas fees. It's very commodity and currency-like. It's a growth prospect about the future of this kind of financial technology, whereas Bitcoin really is all about just the safety and security of Bitcoin. So in a way, they couldn't almost be more different, despite the fact that they're both blockchain assets in terms of their objectives. Investors should, over time, be able to see a lot of diversification benefit across the two. But again, these are 2 out of 23,000 or so major crypto assets. We think ultimately investors, when they're thinking about growth, will want a broad-based index to really capture more of the market.
What do you think the approval of spot Ether ETFs mean for other spot crypto ETFs? In June, VanEck became the first asset manager to file an application for a spot Solana ETF in the US. 21 Shares is hoping to offer a spot Solana ETF as well. What do you think will happen with those applications now?
So on the positive side, of course, we want as broad adoption and regulatory, guardrails to protect investors and to have products realized as possible. Solana is another layer one blockchain which competes with Ethereum. And I think actually when people start hearing about Solana and they realize that Ethereum isn't as singular as Bitcoin is for its function, they start to think, wow, well, maybe I need to look at others. Solana is not supported by a futures market in the United States the way Bitcoin and Ether are. And I think that that's going to make its approval process maybe take a different path. In other jurisdictions or in other regions around the world, virtual assets or digital assets are considered on their own merits. In Europe, there are exchange-traded products on digital asset baskets and a wide range of individual tokens. So we know that these things can take place in regulated markets. It's going to have to take a different regulatory path to get there. Ultimately, for most investors who are not spending a large part of their time thinking about digital assets, really owning an index is going to be the way that they can participate in the growth of the asset class without having to pick individual.
And I think that's the way most people, again, that's how they do most of their stock investing, right? They're not sitting there picking individual stocks. They're buying various indexes to get exposure to sectors and things like that. So this is the future. We're not going to just have two ETFs. And he brought up one thing there where he talks about, most of the stablecoin transactions happens on Ethereum. There's a lot of different stablecoins out there, but the biggest is Tether, and specifically the variation that is on the Ethereum blockchain. Now, some of that's used in Ethereum pools. Of course, some of that is used in various DeFi applications. Fine. But, I think we're going to see a lot more competition with stuff like Ripple, where you have the Ripple stablecoin, and that may pull on Tether onto the XRP ledger, and some of that payment volume that happens on Ethereum may be pulled away. So it's not just competition from the other smart contract chains, but other fine-tuned chains may take away, some of their market share at least. But it's going to be an expanding market in a significant way. This is so small, so early. We're worried about trading on traditional markets. The next couple of years is going to look nothing like this market that we see today. So there's plenty of growth for everything. And if you have utility, if you have purpose, you're going to do very well here as we go forward. Let me know what you think down below. As always, please like, please subscribe. The revolution will be televised right here on Jungle Link.